congratulations. I think you've done well to make it this far. Only the strong survive.
Yeah.
I think the, 40 has been whittled down to like 19 or whatever it is now. So, like I said yesterday, I'd like to give a contract, as it were, between myself and you on what we're going to cover, and hopefully by the end of it I've fulfilled that agreement with you. I hope yesterday I fulfilled that agreement at the beginning. I'll try to do the same today. The purpose of this class, again, I'm not big into details, I'm nowhere near as good as the rest of the guys here for that kind of stuff, but just hopefully give you guys different ways of seeing things. That's my intention. We're going to look at very simple positions to start off with. So I'm going to start with mount. I'm just going to fix them, try and understand why we do what we do, and try and make them better. And as a side effect, maybe understand better ways of escaping. So a few years ago, I tried, pre-meeting Preets, was about 2017. I did try and book a couple of black belts to teach at my gym, to do a seminar. Both very, very good black belts from very, very elite gyms and elite coaches. And I asked them to do no-gi mount, and they arrived and said there's no such thing. And I was like, this is odd, I'm sure there is. I've seen it, it works-ish. But apparently it doesn't exist. So we're going to try and fix it. So we'll start off with, I want you guys to go with your partners or whatever, go to mount and try and figure out all those details that you think would be needed to keep that person under mount and go for submissions. So what would you need to do? And then we'll come back and you guys can give me the details that you have, and we're going to see if we can make things better. So hopefully you know what mount is. I don't want to show you. Go make no-gi mount work. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let's see what happens. Here we go. So if I gave you guys the option of mount, like if I give you the different positions of jiu-jitsu, like guard, mount, side control, back control, how far up would mount be on your list of priorities for getting a submission? Pretty high?
Pretty low.
Pretty low?
Pretty low, yeah.
Pretty low, pretty high? In between?
Yeah, pretty high.
Yeah, so there's a mixture. I mean, points-wise, it's pretty high. It's a 4-point position. So you get to mount, it's 4 points, it keeps decent spread. Especially if you've just gone guard past the mount, you're up 7 now, it's brilliant. But like I said, there's a good mix across the room there. People saying really high, like I want mount, I can get submissions from mount, and then people saying really low, like I can't get submissions at all. So a lot of this is based off a mildly passing comment that Vim did in the Heidelberg class last year. And he mentioned it again earlier about the planes of motion, or have you referred to it. So you have contraction and extension, you have rotation, and you have lateral motion. I look at that very similar, but when it comes to lateral motion, the way I kind of see it is you can move your head and move your hips. So if someone's controlling my shoulders, they're usually not controlling my hips that well. So I can kind of use my hips to escape. If someone's controlling my hips, well, they can't move anymore, so that's why I move my shoulders. For example, like when we shrimping makes sense if someone's got head and arm control on me, because they've got my shoulders, so I move my hips. Yet, if someone holds on to my hips, I can no longer shrimp, really. And the problem with jiu-jitsu is it's very easy to get into a habit of, those like kids' puzzle boxes where you put like the wooden blocks for the holes. It's like if all you have is like a circular piece, then you think that circular piece has to go through every hole, and so you end up getting a hammer and try and bash it through like the square or something. And that's what if all you have is a shrimp, every problem looks like it should be dealt with a shrimp. And so you have people then holding onto your hips and you'll try and force the shrimp, which, okay, it may work eventually, but that's you getting a hammer and trying to smash that circular piece with a square hole. It's not really working. But it's a good way of looking at them controlling someone, is that if I can kill their rotation, if I can kill their ability to extend and contract, and I can control both their head and their hips completely, like the tail ends of the spine, they're done. Like they ain't going anywhere. And so we're going to go back to our mount that you guys are already working on, and we're going to try and add those ideas in. I'm not going to show anything until later. And we're going to try and fix those problems. So the first one there is rotation. Like, I want you to get a mount and make it so they can't rotate in either direction. What do you need to do? Go figure it out. Off you go, and we'll share ideas. I want to make that pretty short, so you guys can share ideas and go back and add to it. So what ideas have people got for like killing rotation? Pardon? Crossface, yeah, that works.
Feet on the inside, bottoms of the feet on the hips.
Show me what you mean?
Sorry.
Do it, let me see.
So the bottoms of the feet on the inside of the hips, pushing down, and you pinch up on the shoulders. And then,
my torso is too short.
Yeah, this.
My torso is too
small
short,
of a
you can't
human,
actually show it.
But like,
it's like here.
Yeah, so it's like this, and then if it was a normal size human, like you could get underneath and cross face, and now bottom and top are unable to rotate, and you can always pull back to prevent the upper body movements.
Head and elbow.
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty much all hitting like similar ideas. So for me to be able to rotate, there are 3 rotation points on my spine. My head, or my chin, my hips, and my shoulders. And all 3 have to be in agreement for me to go anywhere. So if I want to like turn to my left, my head, shoulders, and hips all have to go in that direction. Seems pretty obvious. If one of those things is arguing and doesn't want to go in that direction, say if you're holding it in a different way, I can't go in that direction. Like if my face is stuck over here, I can't turn now without snapping my neck. My shoulders are over here, I can't turn without ripping my own arms off. So a way of killing rotation is first, putting those rotation points, at least 2 in different directions, and now your body can't decide which way it wants to go. Or you can use leverage and weight. This is going to be a funny one. Who's a strong, strapping man? You're strong, sir.
Yes.
So if I've got mount on him, and I put his face in a direction, then he can't throw me the other way because he'd snap his neck. But say I can't do that, say I can't get the crossface or anything, I can use my weight. So I can base out, for example. If he wants to throw me to my right, this direction, I can base out. That would make sense. So foot bridge, yeah, I can kill his rotation with the base out. An interesting one then is, say if I had my arm locked up here, how would I stop him bridging me this way? Pardon? With my leg? Yeah, base out. Leaning the other way? Yes. I do this. I put my hand over here. Everyone's like, fuck, why? The reason being, physics. Like if I put my weight at the end of a very heavy lever, that hand now weighs about 20, 25 kilos. And so I can lock up my hand here. If he tries to bridge me, bridge. Yeah, he can throw me. But if I just put my hand out here, bridge me. I become really fucking heavy. Pretty funny thing to do. Like, I don't have to worry about basing my arm out. So if I'm going for like cross collars and shit, I'll put my hand over here for a bit until I'm happy, because now if he tries to bridge me in this direction, there's nothing there. So yeah, there's various ways you can make yourself super heavy and mount. You can do that with any part of your body. You can put your leg out in the other direction, you can put your head out there. So I could have hold of his arm, for example. I know he can't roll me this direction because my head's in the way, so if he tries to bridge me in this direction, yeah, my head's facing. If he tries to throw me in the other direction, I am super goddamn heavy. Because I went off on the edge of a lever. Does that make sense? So again, I'm trying to give you different ideas of how you can make your mount work and how you can kill those rotation problems of someone trying to bridge you over. And it's not always the most obvious thing. Like, instead of basing out my arm with my leg, I can put something out in the other direction and make myself super heavy. Go feel that. Go now explore different ideas for killing rotation in mount. I want to see what happens. I'm saying here, like, that was just a very good example of this kind of idea in action. Like a prime reason that another one that I do this is side control. It's very easy to get in like a habit of poor proprioception, where you think you are like making a T shape with that person in side control, when in fact you're more like an A-frame. So for example, like Cabrera.
With southpaw?
Orthodox, please. Oh, I'm proud. That's southpaw. Fuck it. Okay. Yeah. You hold, regular head and arm here. But like, where my eyes are, I think I am like forming a T shape with him. But in fact, if I like sit up where my knees are, I'm actually more of an A-frame. So there's less weight on the end of that lever for him to like bridge me over. So it's one of the ways is I make people lighter if I want to bridge them in bottom of side controls. I just walk my legs closer, because now they've got less weight on the end of the lever. It makes them easier to flip up in the air. So if I fix my proprioception and walk my legs up to here, now I'm more like that T shape. So if it tries to lift me up now, I'm really heavy because my legs are X distance away. Now my feet weigh a lot more. Yeah, if I walk my way in, he tries to bridge me the same way. Yeah, now I'm super light. Does that make sense? So I just shorten the lever and now I become light again. So it's just these ideas like, basic. When you hear leverage in jiu-jitsu, normally it's like going the end of the lever to try and break someone's limb. It's not how to make yourself really heavy by just moving your weight onto the actual end of the lever or making it short again. So I use that in side control, but it's the exact same amount. And you just put my hand out of the saddle, just like a extreme example of that idea, that I can just turn my hand into like 25, 30 kilos of weight that become really difficult to move. Does that make sense? So the next issue then is controlling the head and the hips, making it so they can't move both. Because that's, again, one of the main reasons that people escape mount, is that they move their hips, drop their leg down, and escape into a half guard or quarter guard, or etc., or butterfly or whatever. So try and control the head and the hips and see how far you get. Go figure out stuff. Off you go. Nothing? No one had any good ideas?
Underhooks?
Underhooks? Yeah, show them. Yeah, show what you mean. It's like,
Yes, you just go.
yeah, underhooks. Slight problem with that, but we'll address that in a minute. Anyone else?
Grapevine.
Grapevine? Yeah, that controls the legs to an extent. Anything else?
I was like sneaking my leg under him.
Show what you mean.
So once we get here, I start like circling, I just get that one leg under him. It does kill my mobility later on, but I do have a pretty good control over the hips, and from there on it's just the cross face.
I like to turn the each. Yeah, all fine ideas, they all work, but you can see the benefit of doing them. Now this is going to be the big kicker, is to pretty much get any submission in mount then, arm bars or arm triangles or triangles, etc., you need their arms open. That's like the main protocol. You want their arms up here. How do you get their arms up there? You can do it in drilling, yeah, but actually doing it live, how many people get their arms up? Go find a way. Off you go. Okay. Probably see there, like, getting the arms up is relatively difficult, and all the things that you did previously, like, you said to me, oh, I want grapevine, I want to get cross faces, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm way out here. How are you going to implement those things for control whilst also ripping their arms up? Like, pretty much every idea that everyone just had did not at that point involve anything that we said previously. And you can see why mount is hard.
That's not true.
Really?
Yeah, the one that Marcel teaches kind of does that. And
Let me see.
keep control.
No, that's why I like workshopping, because people give loads of ideas.
No, but I can't grapevine your legs.
You don't have to grapevine, you just have to push on my hips with your, no.
Can you put your elbows in?
Yeah, shoot up the knees, do that.
Yeah, like you're pushing down at the same, like you're extending down and then
And then when you come up, it comes in the hips.
Also fist in the neck, so they try to defend the neck. It's also good.
The fist in the neck is the other asshole version.
It's difficult. Like I've used the squat on hips in the past, but this is then like kind of goes back around to the point of this class. Is I purposely didn't show mount in the beginning. I just asked for you to do it, and everyone kind of chose the same mount to start off with. Over the short few decades that we've had jiu-jitsu, there's been a lot of really great minds kind of poured into this sport. But the problem is that we still use the old, maybe outdated positions as our launch points. We take mount the old way that we've all been taught mount, and then we try and basically polish a turd. We get something that isn't really fit for purpose with the new knowledge that we have built up over the years, and we're trying to make it work. We know we've got to kill rotation, we know we've got to try and control the head and the hips, we know we've got to try and open the arms up. Yeah, we're trying to do it from a place that is awful to do it from. Instead of basically chucking it out and starting again and going, right, actually, these things I need to accomplish. Is this start point the best way of doing it? And it can be really difficult, and it's the same with a lot of different positions, is we kind of make a rod for our own back, is we try and make things work from terrible start points. We're kind of prejudiced in how we train. So ignoring everything that you've kind of seen before about mount, I start from the entry into mount, try and make all your ideas work that you just had. So you want to control the hips, you want to control the head, you want to find your way into the armpits and kill rotation. Try and make it work. And then I'll give my idea and we can share ideas and see what happens. Off you go. The majority of people there that I was watching just kind of got the right idea, is you don't even bother starting from typical mount. So if we were to do a mount class, it always starts in that exact same stupid ass position. Like, so if I said we go to mount, you do a mount class, it starts like this. He starts here, I start here, and then we'll go learn mount shit. Yeah, everyone who actually made progress just did not have for a moment this setup. It's like, so why the fuck are we still showing it? Like, you all kind of went really deep in side control, opened the shit out of the arms, and then transitioned into mount and then worked from there. What relevance has this got then? Exactly. But you all, at the beginning of the session, you all start from it, then try to make it work. Yeah, when you actually push game to shove, you didn't bother with this. So why do we still keep doing this? What is the purpose of this position? So the drill I have, I was just into row, my mount finishing rate is relatively high, is I don't bother teaching mount that same way because that has no relevance at all. Like, just the idea that in drilling, I'm just going to open up their arms, and then you try and do it in practice from that position, and it doesn't fucking work. My mount, however, so if I've already spent time opening up the armpit in side control, why the hell would I transition to a position where his armpit can come in and then I have to reopen his armpit again? That makes no fucking sense. However, if I've spent all that energy from the guard pass opening his arms up, then I'll just keep them up. So as I transition now from side control to mount, I'm not going to let this arm, it's up right 10 o'clock right now, it's not going to come back down to meet his hips. Mm-hmm. So, everything I said earlier is now working. Can you turn left or right? Mm-hmm. Can you move your head or your hips? Mm-hmm. Nope. Are your armpits exposed? Mm-hmm. Cool. Arm bottom.
Makes sense.
So it made no sense to teach mount that normal way if that is wildly superior and fits all the bits that I need for control. I killed his rotation, I killed his head and his hips, and I opened up his arms and left them open for the entire time. As I transitioned, there was no way I was going to let them close again. Does that make sense? So going back to what I said at the beginning of this class, I want to take the ideas that a lot of these great coaches have already come up with this week, and maybe just like reevaluate how you do your jiu-jitsu in the parts that make no sense, going, why the fuck am I even starting from here then? Let's look at it from a completely different perspective. So feel this mount. I'll walk you through the little things that I look for. If you go back to side control, please. Southpaw. A nice drill that I do in my gym is, if you've earned this open, all I want to do is transition to mount, but imagine there's like a spring between his elbow and his lat. So he's not going to drive it back in, but if there's tension lost on his arm, it just retracts. Does that make sense? So I'm going to have my side control, and I want to be able to, if I move to mount and his arm slips down, like that was no effort. If I can't do it and he's putting in no effort, how the fuck am I going to do it in rolling? Like, so I want to be able to keep it up and not let it come back down. That have any opportunity to come back down? Nope. Is that pretty tight?
Yep.
Cool. So just try that drill, that side control to mount. As soon as the arm's up in, you've earned it. Try and keep it there, and if your partner can just retract it, then that's a problem. It needs to stay up, like towards his ears. And then feel how that feels, that position at the end. Off you go. Does that make sense? Mount feel tight? Alright, Raul just did it to me, I thought it was going to break my jaw. Any difference? Make sense? Not make sense? Again, I don't want it to be just me talking at people for 4 hours. Any ideas you guys have, like, I'll steal them and say they're mine.
So, not training from the old school mount position.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make sense to train from there when you're considering sweeps from mount? So do you feel like you sometimes end up there if someone is like
Well, this is the interesting thing. Like, is it worth learning those kind of defenses, like sweeping from the bottom, etc., from the bottom of mount, against people who do shit versions of things? Like, if that mount makes no sense, then why am I learning against people who are doing a shit version of something?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, in theory, it's you can kind of reverse everything I've just said, as in, I want to be able to turn, I want to have you nowhere near my armpits, I want to reconnect my knee to my elbow if I can and get you out of my armpits. And that's the basis of most escapes from mount. But again, if we're training against stupid people, then we're naturally holding ourselves back. Again, we make our rod for our own back by giving people terrible positions and then showing them defense to them. We should just get rid of the terrible position in the first place. Because eventually you'll come across people who have more about them and do smarter things, and you've never sampled it. There's no point in you learning like a typical mount escape if you're going to fight me, because I'm never going to go there. So again, it's part of the problem is that I argue that a lot of these things shouldn't exist because they're just too terrible. Like, they're just too easy to kind of figure your way out of. Yep.
So if your mount fails, it also doesn't go to a shitty mount. Like, if your mount fails and
Yeah, if the high mount fails, I mean, there is, like, obviously, there's a brilliant, I'm going to be paraphrasing awfully, I think it's by Ryan Hall, and he was, I talked to Raul about it the other day, where when Ryan Hall was like a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, he was very good at submitting people from guard, like triangles, etc., etc. And then he mentioned about how Roger Gracie is considered one of the greatest of all time. Yeah, I wouldn't put Roger Gracie's technique as that high. Like, he's very good at his basics. But one thing that Ryan said was that he always played on top, and so you always maximize his attributes. So if you're only play guard if you are better than the other person, because your skill has to override their skill, plus mass, gravity, and mobility. That's just natural attributes that person will have over you. You do not have those as a person on the bottom. You're not as mobile, and you're not as, you haven't got gravity on your side because you're underneath them. Gravity doesn't work that way. So Roger, because he always played on top, he had his skill plus those extra attributes that like helped him win. And so the one thing that Ryan said was that, you know, playing on top makes more sense. So even if my mount fails, my high mount, I still want to be on top like no matter what, because I want to have everything on my side. I may have to transition, I may have to go side control on the arm belly, etc., but I still want to be on top. A couple of things I may look for if I end up going down their legs, just so I can keep good positioning, is, again, stealing from Vim, mermaid. Were you there in Iceland where I made that guy sing Under the Sea to me to let him out? That's funny. So if I end up slipping down their legs for whatever reason, I'll just triangle above their knees. And now he's a mermaid. Fucking miserable, isn't it? So I might end up having to live here for a while, but I don't mind. Depends how much they sing to me. I don't have options of going to his armpits, but at least I can drown him for a bit. Otherwise, if I have to take traditional looking mount, one thing that I do play a little bit just to wind people up is, you know, is it Guantanamo escape, where you like go to half guard, you drop your leg, reach over and pull this in. It's usually whatever foot is on top is exposed. So if I think he's going to turn this way, I put that foot on the bottom and put the other leg on top. Now we can't find my foot to get out. If he changes directions and goes the other side, I just change feet. And now we can't go for that leg either. Make me laugh. Does that make sense? So even if I'd like mount, but as a submitting position, it makes no sense the way we do it. I will not sit in that middle place. I'll either go up high into your armpits and I'll go submission hunting, or I'll lock in a mermaid and keep you trapped there for a bit. I don't want to sit in that middle ground because it has no value for anything else. Maybe striking, but that's about it. Does that make sense? Right, so using some of those ideas then, I want you to fix side control. Make side control better again. One of the interesting things actually is loads of people had very good ideas here about how to do various things. They're all correct because they're all making the same outcome. I want to control the head, I want to control the hips. There's multiple ways of doing things. So, and it means you can adapt. Like, you know that if someone suddenly moves in one direction, you can adapt things around it and fix it because you know what they're doing. Oh, they're rotating, this is how they're getting out, I need to kill the rotation. So a lot of jiu-jitsu is, chaos, and having the reasons why people get out of things can only make you better, because then you can read the situation, use some fight IQ and fix it. So a lot of the ideas you have now are going to be correct for certain circumstances, but it's about adapting and still applying the same idea with different variations of things. So make side control better. Think of all the things you just did about living in the armpits, killing rotation, controlling the head and the hips. See what you come out with. Off you go. Yes. What have people figured? What do you do?
We
Show me.
we cradle, but then we use like this.
Oh, women stuff.
So wait, please show it to everyone.
Yeah.
So with this hand here,
Yeah.
and this going on, and here the same thing,
Yeah.
and then move.
That's definitely an option. You can see why it works. You can't rotate. You can't move his head and his hips. Yeah, he's pretty fucked there. I agree. But again, the purpose of this is to see why people do what they do, and that's, again, I don't want to necessarily teach techniques. I want to teach you why we do what we do, so you can you improve your fight IQ and you can just fix things. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Anything else? I cheated again, and I gave you guys bad information. One thing I did then was I didn't show you side control. Same with the mount. I didn't show you mount because I want to see what you guys did. Again, polishing turds. Because I'm a longer individual, I have an inherent problem, is I leave gaps everywhere. Side control, please. So if I take regular head and arm, yeah, it works. You can see why we get head and arm now, because if I push his jaw this way, he tries to turn back in towards me, he'd snap his neck. If I lift his arm off the floor, if he tries to now roll away, where his face is letting him go, he has to rip his arms off. So that's why we do head and arm. Does that make sense? But it can be any of these rotation points. I can lift this arm up, and now if he wants to turn back towards me, he'd have to rip his arm off. If he was to roll away from me, he'd have to rip this arm off. So I don't have to go head and arm, I can just control those rotation points. So the problem with being a long boy when it comes to side control is the distance between, if you refer to this distance here between my shoulder and my elbow as X, the distance between my shoulder and my hip is X plus Y, okay? And this is a problem because when I get head and arm control, the distance, the size of a humerus, the distance down to his elbow, is always going to be shorter than the distance it is between my shoulder and my hip. So people will always fucking frame on me, no matter what I do. I could get super deep here and hold him nice and tight, but if I try and move in any way, his arm comes in, he frames on me, and then that's the start of the shrimping process, and now I lose side. Like, all the long people are going, yeah, bullshit. Exactly.
Used to hate it.
Yeah, this is a problem. Again, I spent fucking years with shit side control because of this very issue. But again, it's polishing a turd. As in, we start with this head and arm control because that's what we're shown on day one, and from then on out, we'll try and make this turd work. But it's still a turd. As much as we want to shine it, it's still bullshit. So, I got rid of that problem. Instead of having this natural limiter of my shoulder, I just put my arm on the other side and sucked his head into it. Because now, if he tries to frame on my hips, he will never find that gap. Hence why when I move to mount, I don't lose anything. I don't end up with him framing on my hips. If I try and do that from regular head and arm control, even if I have super tight here, if I try and move to mount, his arm's always going to come flying in and I'm going to lose everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, quick question though.
Yeah.
So you lose the crossface in exchange for that.
Yeah, but the crossface, like, again, the purpose of the crossface is so he can't turn back in towards me because his face is locked over here. But I'm getting the same outcome by lifting his elbow high. So if I keep his arm up here, if he tries to turn back towards me, he can't because his arm has to come off. And he tries to roll away from me, he can't because he has to rip his arm off. So I'm getting the same outcome, just with a different part of the body. That's why I kind of like this. His arm's trapped. Move to my mount. He has no arms. And I get my arm back. Does that make sense? So again, it's this problem that we have is we keep starting from terrible positions because that's what we were taught on day one, and then we try and make it work for everyone out, but it naturally has gaps in it. Like when you mentioned earlier about, why learn old school mount, the ways of defending it. Again, like if we teach everyone to hold bad side control, where this frame is always going to happen, then, you have to hold, like, prime example, guard. Is who here has ever rolled with someone who is like brand new, a bit meatheadish, and slams into stacking on day one? Several people, yes. So normally, atypical BJJ, we tell everyone posture, yeah, move up, posture, and everyone does that in the gym. And then you come across some maniac on their day one, and like they have never played guard before, and they just do this and start running forwards. And you're like, no, don't do that. Like, you have to posture instead. Except that's working. like meathead man here is like holding you down with his non-jiu-jitsu, and you're like, no, you can't do that because it doesn't work. You have to posture. And then you sweep the fucker. And it's like, but what he was doing before was working. Like, why did we break that person's correct thing to give them something that was shit to then sweep them with it? Like, that makes no sense. And it's the exact same here, as in we give people awful side control so then we can teach them the answer to that awful side control. They say, oh, you have to get head and arm. All right, cool, right, get head and arm. Yeah, someone gets head and arm, it's dead easy to then frame on their hips. And you're like, the fuck, why did we teach him that bullshit then? If it's so easily killed. If it makes no fucking sense. And it's so frustrating to see that in jiu-jitsu. We start from these turds and we just try and polish them repeatedly. So ignoring then all your kind of preconceptions and your prejudices about side control, start from scratch, find new ways of killing rotation, inhabiting the armpits so they never get their arms back, and killing the head and the hips, and see what you come out with. Steal my idea if you want, see what you think. Off you go. Make sense? That makes sense? Again, it's adaptable. I promised I'd show this. When I'm on top, if I gave you, what do you use here? Euros. If I gave you a euro and I gave you a thumbtack, you know what you use for like putting posters into walls, and I told you to push both with equal force into the mat, which one pierces the canvas? Is it the euro or the thumbtack? Thumbtack. It's obvious. Like, if I give you something that's spiky and try to drive into the floor, it's going to pierce the ground. If I give you something that's got a super flat edge and try to push into the floor, it's not going to pierce the ground. And it's the exact same when I'm trying to put pressure on people. Is if I spread my weight over my chest, it's a large surface area and it's not going to make them suffer. But if I can focus my weight through tiny sharp points, that's why knee on belly sucks so bad, because it's sharp. Shoulders, also prime example, corner of my hip bones, elbows. Again, physics, I make myself really heavy in those points. Pounds per square inch, PSI, whatever you want to call it. So, who can suffer? Where's he gone? Oh, he's fucked up. Oh well. Sorry. So if I hold my weight over him with my chest, yeah, I'm pretty heavy. It's probably not comfortable. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Out of 10, how much does it suck?
I like it 4, 3.
3, 4, 5, 4. Okay. Yeah, so that's me on my toes and my weight spread over my chest on him, which again, it's a large surface area, so the weight's spread out. But if I focus my weight through this nugget here, like the corner of my shoulder.
Yeah, no.
How would you rate that?
Like a 9 or something.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I didn't suddenly get super heavy. I just used science again. I just focused all my weight through a sharp point, and now all of a sudden I'm super goddamn heavy on top of him. Same with like if I put my stomach here, my hips, rating?
1.
If I use my hip bone?
No, yeah. Okay, 7 or something.
Exactly. So all I do is rotate slightly, and now my weight's going through a sharper point, and my weight on him feels incredibly unpleasant. But that's again an adaptation of the idea. Like, I've got to control his head and his hips, so I have his head and his hips trapped between my elbows. I need to kill his rotation, so I elevate this arm. Now if he tries to turn towards me, he can't. If he tries to roll away from me, he can't, because I have both his arms. And then I focus my weight through something sharp, the corner of my shoulder, put it into his rib cage, and I can hold him here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes. A lot. I was told off. That's why I'm going to give it to you guys, because I can live vicariously through you then. I'm not allowed to do it, but you guys are. Yeah, so the grip there, again, it's just an adaptation of the idea, is my arm that's nearest his hips goes under his shoulder, so he can't turn towards me. My arm that should be around his head goes around his elbow, so he can't roll away from me. I trap his head and his hips as best I can between my elbows, and then I'm just going to put the corner of my shoulder into like the not top of his rib cage, not the side of his rib cage, but like this corner bit here where it starts to bend. I'm going to try and focus all my weight through my shoulder into that, and go get a reaction out of your partner, see how happy they are. If their ribs break, stop. Off you go. If I'd say to you at the beginning of this, all I'm going to teach you is like side control and mount, like you probably would have left, probably still going to leave. But purpose of the game was just giving you different ideas and trying not to just start with awful technique and then try and make it work, like just think differently. Last one then is we're going to look at back control. So one of the problems that we have then with one of the things that I say to my students when they first start, by and large, is a good rule of thumb is if you are attacking, delete space. If you're defending, create space. It's like a old adage that I remember reading like when I first started jiu-jitsu, is just you can always be making progress if you keep this idea in mind. So even if I'm on top and I have no idea what the fuck to do next, if I'm constantly deleting space and taking from them, I am making progress. If I am on the bottom and I'm suffering in any way, even if I can't get out, as long as I'm creating space, I'm making their life more difficult. It's why defending in transitions works so well, is that if someone has like a giant, really good control over my rib cage and my body, and like close down all the gaps in side control. When they want to move from, say, side control to an armbar, they create a giant space all of a sudden, and it's in that space we move. I can't move when all the space has disappeared. I can't move when all the space has disappeared and they've got my arm. But in that transition between the two, they have to create space. It's like a weird paradox. Like we always want to be deleting space on someone, but to be able to transition, we have to give space. Like if Raul went for like a arm, pulled me onto my side, go for an armbar from mount, side control. Now he's just going to spin around with the armbar. Yeah, but in that moment there, so go back. He break it down to little parts. So whilst he had his side control here, there's no space. But as he comes up to go for the armbar, that's when the space happens, and he can't help that fact. Like for him to transition, he has to give space. There's no point in me fighting in the position, but when that space comes out, that's when I go, because I wanted space, he gave me space, I may as well use it. So it's just like a really good idea to have in the back of your head constantly, like you can always be making progress even if you have no plan. So the last position we're going to fix there is back control, and we're going to try and fix all those attributes that we spoke about. So I need to delete space, because I'm the attacker. I control the head and hips, rotation, and contraction and extension. So start with your back control, and we'll start with killing rotation. So don't worry about anything else. We're going to like dissect it and do it in small parts, so not making it too complicated. Is I want you to get your back control and find the best way of killing their rotation that they can't turn left or right. Figure it out. Off you go.
Body triangles.
Go for it. Yeah, that kills rotation a lot. Body looks as well as it does. Yeah, body triangles, one option. Anything else? Yeah, control the shoulders both ways. Yeah, exactly what I said earlier. Control head and hips, control hips, shoulders or head, and you're killing rotation in one direction at least, or two. Yep.
Diagonal control.
Show me what you mean.
So if we don't have a body triangle, if we rotate that way, this one can get activated. And
Yeah.
goes the other, and without the body safe.
Yeah, all good stuff.
Full Nelson.
Full Nelson, that's definitely an option as well, if you don't want to make friends. Right, next part then, so we've killed rotation, is control the head and the hips completely. So they can't move the upper body or their lower body. Go figure it out. Off you go. So, really interesting ideas, some good shit there. Watched around the room, I was like, nice, some nice ideas. So the final problem is then, how do you control the shoulders and the hips? How do you control their rotation? But also then go submission hunting, because all those grips you kind of generated, like they weren't going to allow you to go anywhere afterwards to go hunting for a neck. Like you may have had like a full Nelson or like pull the arms in both directions, but then how are you going to like free yourself up to go for the neck without them doing one of those two problems that we just had? So if you look at like the Hawkins defense from back, like Preet does, or the baby bridge, is pretty much putting this idea in action. So if someone's on my back, I'm implementing that idea. So it's I'll explain why afterwards. But so someone has a seatbelt here, and they have the lock, yeah. So the way I get out is I think, right, my rotation, can I turn left or right? I can't turn this way, that's shit. Okay, so I can turn this way. Yeah, I can move this. Now I think, right, head and hips, can't really move my hips, so I'm going to move my shoulders. And now if he tries to start attacking me, he can't, there, my shoulders are now moved again. Like he can't let go and go for two things at the same time. He can't delete space and transition. It's impossible. Same with like if he's got the seatbelt on the other side. So we just same seatbelt. I'm gonna go like the other way. Choke side down. Yeah. So again, like my shoulders and my hips now are currently covered. I think right. Can I turn to my right? Nope. Can I turn to my left? Yeah, a little bit. My shoulders and hips. Nope. not much. But for a second he starts trying to attack. I'm always moving one of those things. So as he tried to adjust with his hands to stop my shoulders, he forgot about his legs. And as he forgot about his legs, my hips went. And then he realized that and went back to his legs and my shoulders went. And so I'm always moving those aspects, always trying to implement that idea. So what I refer to it as is you know, like a bike padlock? You flick the numbers and the padlock opens. Does that make sense? Or like a briefcase lock. There's 3 columns on a bike padlock. Imagine this bike padlock in your head. There's 3 columns, 3 numbers. Here goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Each column represents one of those planes of motion. So number 1 is contract and extend. And I use that to try and get my armpits clean. So I either go contract and get my elbows down, or extend and try and get my arms back in again. I can either turn left. Column 2 is turn left or turn right. And column 3 is move my shoulders or move my hips. And all of these defensive postures, Hawkins, baby bridge, running man, etc., shrimping, are all iterations of combinations on this. It's how I choose, it's how I know which defense to use at any one time, is I just basically apply the padlock and it gives me the route out. So like say if I went to running man and you were behind me here, so I think, right, okay, can I turn to my right? No. So can I turn? Yeah, I can turn to my left. Can I move my hips? Nope. Can I move my shoulders? Yes. Cool. And comes up then. Now he's got this. So I think, right, what's he got? Well, he's got my shoulders. Can I turn to my left? Not really. Can I turn to my right? A lot easier. So now I'm going to start applying that. So now, here, Hawkins, etc. So I always I can adapt. The padlock will always change, but it's how I make decisions in my head. It's my decision model. Is I use this to try choose the right escape at the right time. Like I said earlier at the beginning, it's easy to, if you've only got one escape, you try and just bash that escape until it works. But that's not jiu-jitsu. It's you make anything work with strength eventually. But applying this kind of padlock idea is how I know which one to use at any point in time. Just like when you had my back just, and I was down, choke side down. Here, I was thinking, right, can't move my hips, they're fucked. Can I turn to my right? No. Can I turn to my left? Yes. Can I contract? No. Can I extend? Yes. Cool. So now we're doing Hawkins. And then as he starts to then adapt and think, right, I need to get hold of his shoulders again. And now let go of his hips a little bit, and now I've rotated out. Does that make sense? So it's my way of figuring out of things. And now, because of understanding that, is how I try and break people. Is I try and basically kill all those options on the padlock, or limit their options completely. Does that make sense? Whilst deleting space. So applying that idea then is test everything you've just done. Now your partner's going to put in some resistance. So they're going to turn left, turn right, extend, contract, and move their shoulders or move their hips to try and get out. And you've got to try and deal with those problems and see what happens. So it's mildly resisted sparring, okay? Not going balls to the wall, but you should be able to do it consciously. And if at the end be able to have a conversation and go, right, when did that break? If you can't do it consciously, if you're just going to go balls to the wall, then you're not going to learn anything. At the end, you should be able to go, I lost it because as I held onto your hips more, you moved your shoulders and got out that way. So I need to kill that rotation, or I need to hold your shoulders better at that point. Does that make sense? I'm going to use that kind of model to try and fix our back control. So use resisted drilling, conscious feedback. Off you go. Progress? Difficult?
Yes.
Really energy intensive. Try and hold back control, and when someone's actually applying that padlock method of escape, it's really fucking difficult to hold on to someone. But again, I didn't show you back control to begin with. You guys chose to do it from this awful position. So I kind of shouted at Jack over there for being an asshole because he kind of ruined the surprise. the reason we have all these various systems come out for like back control is because it's really fucking hard and a turd again, and they're all trying to polish this same turd. And they get close, they try and implement various ways of killing rotation, killing the head and the hips, but also go hunting, but still a turd. And considering it's a 4-point position, it's really hard, you know, when someone's got a good defense to actually finish at all from back control. I'd put it back control, despite being 4 points, as like, I refer to it as back guard. And I'd put it around the point of guard as well. Like, it's really easy to pass sometimes, and apart from a couple of obvious submissions, it's quite difficult to finish from. So I prefer rear mount instead. Brody, sorry. No, okay. Sucks to be you. So, yeah, I don't bother with this again because this feels really difficult to control. So I instantly. Yeah, I just go straight face down and go and then make that thing. So I cross my feet, because why would I have to worry about crossing my feet? He's not going to ankle lock me here, is he? Elevate hips off the floor. Now there's no space, so I've got rid of that issue. Head and hips, move your head and hips. No. Rotate, can you rotate at all? No. And when I want to go for a choke, you can try, you know, I'm not going to give up much space when I go for this. Does that make sense? So again, we started from a turd and we tried to make the turd work instead of just going, right, think outside the box. Does it make any sense? No. It works in training, but I just go for this. And then the interesting, when we had this conversation in my gym, I did this class and everyone was like, some people actually came out and was like, oh, why don't you just put them face down? I just thought, well, what's the point in pulling them onto us in the first place then? Like, why grab someone, pull them into back guard, then try and sweep them into back mount? Why don't I just drive them like a fleshy tent peg into the ground? And so we then completely changed up how we take the back. Instead of like doing various things that would involve us, our back hitting the floor and ending up in a guard, we just found a way of just burying people into the ground.
How would you deal with the overtime position?
Pardon?
If you have to start in the position.
If you have to?
In overtime. So you have to set the start.
Well, that then became, I had this conversation with Vim last night, is usually when we're playing back, we just go hunting for submissions. We haven't really built up a sweeping game from back guard yet, like as a collective. And so that's kind of my new thing, is I'm trying to treat it as any other guard and trying to work out a sweeping system, then just turn them face down and bury them and then go hunting from there. It's been some interesting progress, but I don't even bother hunting for submissions from there anymore. In general, just as a bit of maybe competition advice, in what I said earlier, is if you're on your back, there's only one way of scoring points in jiu-jitsu, and that's a sweep. Every other thing that happens to you is you losing points. So being the person on top makes the most sense in general. I remember going to a competition, watching a bunch of blue belts try and murder each other, and they were making this odd choice where they were flying for arm bars and their back was hitting the floor. But the second their back was hitting the floor, they had shit control, and now they've just gone back into guard again. And so it was like the points difference was like the points accumulating was insane. And so you look at it from the perspective of, you know, look at it from the third person's perspective. They passed the guard, they took him down 2 points, passed the guard, now we're on 5 points. They've gone to mount, now we're on 9 points. And now they've thrown for a stupid armbar, and now they're on their back. So they've gone from a 9-point lead with mount to now being on their back in guard. That's ridiculous. Why the fuck would you do that? And now all that person has to do is pass the guard. Now it's 9-3, and they're on the bottom. Now they've got knee on belly. Now it's 9-5. Now they've got mount. Now it's 9-9. You went from having a 9-0 spread and, you know, mount to now being equal and under someone's mount, just because you got greedy and went for an armbar that required your back to hit the floor. So as a general kind of rule of thumb in IBJJF, BJJ competitions, whatever, like leg locks don't count, is I will not do anything where my back involves my back hitting the floor, because it's very easy for it to just go instantly wrong, is that if I, made all that effort and taken someone's back, and my back is now on the ground, all they need to do is spin and I'm back in fucking guard. Like, why would I let them on top? And so we changed our competition mindset to now being, at no point do you do anything that involves your back hitting the floor. You stay on top no matter what. If you've got mount and they spin, cool, you take rear mount. If they spin again, you do not follow them to keep rear back control, you stay on top. Because that's the problem there, is if I got greedy and he turned his back and I took the back control from mount and then he rolled and I just carried on with him, now I'm on my back. If he spins, is it worth it? Maybe I might get a submission, but if I don't, I'm now giving up everything. That makes no sense.
So you'd say that the guard pass is more of a threat than the sweep in that situation? Because if you're in my guard, I can sweep you or you can pass me, right?
Yeah.
And we get the same amount of points?
No, I get, you for your sweep you get 2 points, for my pass I get 3 points.
Yeah, okay, so the pass is even worth more.
Yeah.
But you say it's also a bigger threat.
Yeah, well that's me, like, as soon as I've passed your guard, like, you're now carrying me, it's exhausting, like, and I'm just accumulating points. You can't accumulate on the bottom. I don't know the veracity of it, but I'm sure it's a Danaher quote, is the point system's based on punching. If you ever go to a BJJ competition and you lose on points, oh yeah, I could have got a submission but I lost on points. That basically meant in an actual fight, points are a metaphor for punches. Is that we take someone down, 2 points, we take them into the world of jiu-jitsu, but we get 3 points for the guard pass because I can get kicked in the face. Like, that's the most powerful part of the body. I can still get up kicked. If I get past the legs, it's 3 points. And then I go through a hierarchy of positions that allow me to punch you more. Side control, I can't really hit you much. Knee on belly, I can deliver a little bit, but mount and rear mount, it's raining. Like, I can go nuts on you.
So then I have a caveat to that. And then my question, you're completely correct, but then how do you feel about then, if that's the criteria, can you get punched in the face? And can the guy punch you back? Then, certain high guards should give you points, because you can like what Tony Ferguson does, and he can elbow you in the face and you can, but they don't award points for that.
No.
So then it's like,
I agree.
yeah, I could have knocked his teeth in, but I wasn't allowed.
Yeah. It's a poor reference for it, but that is essentially why the point system came around, to my knowledge. I may be incorrect. Ignoring stuff like guard against BJJ, that's why they got rid of leg locks, because they're racist. Most classist.
Sorry, Craig.
So yeah, if you lose on punches, it's because it was, from a positional point of view, it was raining knuckles on you at that point in time. So if you say, oh yeah, I lost like 18-0, it meant that if this was a real fight, I would have probably ate a lot more punches than the other guy. And that's why, again, from a self-defense perspective, from an MMA perspective, from a jiu-jitsu points perspective, I just want to do shit that involves me being on top, because it's very easy for me to win in that way. I do not want to do anything when my back hits the floor. That's why I don't like back control. Yeah, again, it's like a guard. It's possible to score a submission, but if it fucks up, I'm fucked. But that's why I prefer rear mount, because if it fucks up, I haven't lost anything. Like, turn over, okay, I've got mount again. I'll submit you in that way. Does that make sense? But also fulfills my criteria, and also this point of today, which was looking at what we do in jiu-jitsu and thinking, right, actually does it make sense at all with what we know now? Maybe not. Maybe we can do things better. Maybe we don't have to train with these old positions, like teaching someone head and arm on day one. Why? It's awful. Doesn't make any sense. Try that rear mount. See what you think. Push your feet, lift the legs off the floor, drive your hips through their body so their diaphragm collapses, and see how that compares to your back control that you just had. See which one you prefer. Off you go. Make sense? Again, it kind of changed now how I want to play back, because I don't want to do things that risk me losing control. I don't want to risk people getting back on top, so I just try and play that instead. I just find ways of burying people into the ground and then playing from there, and just don't bother with back guard at all. I mean, like I say, it's like any other guard. Like, it can go well, it can go wrong. If it goes wrong, you're now in a much worse position than maybe you had before. After what Corey did, he did a Q&A at the end of his, and this is the last 15 minutes of learning for this camp before you open out and we play later. So, any questions on the two things that I've done over the past 2 days, or jiu-jitsu in general? Yeah?
I have one question. You go from stack mount to mount. You go with the knee from one hip to one hip, or you go this way?
So what do you mean?
When you go up, you go this way, or you go this way?
Oh yeah, I want to avoid the hips as much as I can because I don't want to get grounded again. So the difference between side control, mount, and north-south is just what's in their armpits. Like, they blend quite easy in that way. If you think side control, it's a hip and an arm. In mount, it's 2 hips, and in north-south, it's 2 arms. So all I'm ever doing is just replacing part of my body in their armpits, so I can free up something else. So that's why my mount tends to be very high. Is that if I've opened up their arm already with my arm, I'm now just going to replace my arm with my leg, so my arm can do something else. And so I don't necessarily bring it low because I don't want this looking guard, but also I want to replace something that's in their armpits. I've earned them. I'm not going to let them have them back. That makes sense. Anything else? Yep.
Can you give a sneak peek from sweeping from the back?
Sweeping from the back?
Yeah, so you were explaining that you see the back position more as like a guard, unless you're completely like on top.
So that then changed.
What is the tactics to get somewhere?
Sorry, you're closest. I was trying to treat like any other guard, as in getting hooks into sweep. But then what I realised is that when I want to roll someone, I thought that if I take this arm, he can't base out. If I roll over it, I'm going to force him to roll. Then the problem that started happening is that everyone started to put the other arm out, and that actually makes a way better base. And so then made me think, well, what's the point in doing the seatbelt then? So I started to then go underneath the arm, trap this. So now we can't base out if I send him that way, getting a hook in, and just sending him straight over, and taking him over. Sorry. Oh, good.
I knew you were going to use it.
Yeah, so I started to then play with different grips and like avoiding the seatbelt. So I'd go for like that low kind of like half body lock kind of position. Yeah, just trapping it across. And then just taking them over. Pulling them. But again, I don't try and aim for that position in general. I just try and aim. I don't want to pull them onto me to then send them back on top again. Like, I just go straight for my turtle, get double unders, and just like rip them in half. Sorry. Again, I listen to fucking put on the seatbelt. So which turtle? He's got good turtle. Yeah, so I'll transition, I'll get my hooks in, but then I won't do a seatbelt and think I want to roll this guy over, because then I've taken the top position, then take a floor position, for them to him potentially roll over, and I'm now on my back, and then it's raining knuckles again. So instead, I start getting double unders and just ripping people out and just burying them from here. What was the point in the seatbelt? Fun?
No, I said that's way better.
Yeah. Like, why roll them to then have to find various ways of stopping them from moving? I just do that. Anything else? Questions?
Yes, I have a question. Like, this was a question actually a friend of mine asked at the Craig Jones Lakeland Giles camp, and then
why asking me that much?
Because they just went like, oh no, that's not a thing. Like they just ignored the complete question and just gave like yeah. So they just ignored the question basically. But the question was, when I have a technique, how do I know if the technique doesn't work because it doesn't fit my body type, or because I just do the technique incorrectly? How do I know? Because we were talking about yesterday about like certain body types can do certain things. Like if you have very short legs, you can do a triangle broad-shouldered people, but where is the tipping point where it's just, oh, my technique just kind of sucks and it needs to be kind of different, or?
I think it's because like, if you just try and repetition a technique, like copying out of a textbook, you don't understand why the technique exists, you won't know why it's failed. But it's the exact same what I was saying about joint locks, is that if you don't understand the idea that I need to control above and below the 101, I need to delete space and fully control that joint, then you go for like a heel hook or a leg lock on someone and there's a giant gap, you think, oh, maybe the leg lock isn't for me. But if you can analyze and go, actually, when I get this, I can't create a good bite because my legs are too long and I've left a giant gap that won't allow me to latch onto their leg. So it's kind of like knowing the technique deeper and knowing why you're doing what you're doing is how. So it's exactly the same what I've been doing today. Like the side control thing, like how do I know side control is not for me and it's just my body type? Well, again, like why is it failing? It's because I'm leaving such a gap between my shoulder and my hip that they can frame in because I'm too long. So I need to adapt it. It's the same as like the triangle, for example. If I can't go all the way around to the other side of the shoulder and then pull their arm forward, well, that's why. It's because I can't latch onto the shoulder to pull it forward because my legs are too short. And so that's what I'd say is the crux of that is if you just try and repetition a technique as it's shown, like here's a heel hook, then you won't know why it has worked or why it hasn't worked. But if you understand why the technique is working, you can analyze it and then change it to make it work for you. If that's a better answer.
Yes, that's really good.
Like I mentioned it to Raul, in that because I've got really long legs, I have an issue with some heel hooks is I leave giant gaps. And so the grip I then started to take was because I've got so much leg left by the time I've latched onto like an ashy or whatever, there's gaps everywhere. So what I started to do is I started to like hook their lower back for my heel hooks because I've got so much leg left. Sorry, which one? Stand up. So if I just go searching for like an ashy, for example, it's difficult. I'm always going to leave giant spaces. But if I normally go hunting, I latch on up here.
Overkill.
You're around the hip.
Pardon?
You're really high up on the hip.
Yeah, I'm over his back. Now if he tries to get out, there's no leg left. Was that a decent pinch?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, so drop right. Exactly. If I now go swimming, he ain't coming out of this. There's no leg left because I found a way of making it work for me. If I just try and do like a regular ashy in any way, it always feels like there's going to be loads of leg left. I can't get a decent bite in any way, shape or form. It all just feels giant and pointless. So I adapted, and now this is my leg lock, is I just go shooting up and grip above the hips. If that makes sense. But it's applying that idea. Yeah.
Have you had to change that if you've had to someone with long legs like myself and you?
But we had someone who's got giant legs. No, again, one of the interesting things, like the difference between a lot of the heel hooks is just my butt placement. So if I don't get one, if I move my butt, I can probably get something else. If I go for here's potentially an outside heel hook, here's a knee bar, here's an inside heel hook. I didn't move my legs, I just moved my ass. Either way, I want to control his hip. And just depending on where I grab his ankle is going to dictate what he gets stuck in. So again, it's the outside, inside, and knee bar are all just different attacks on the knee. Isolate my enemy, I want to destroy his knee. I need to isolate the hip and the ankle then, and then wherever I am in relation to the ankle is just going to dictate what submission I get him in. So if one isn't working, and if I do it to you because you've got really long legs. Oh my God, you've got giant ones. So stand up, so I'll latch on. Yeah, it feels like I'm really far away from you. But yeah, so finishing this one feels like it could be miles away to try and finish my heel hook, so I won't bother. This one feels better. I didn't have to change anything. Make sense? Anything else? Yep.
Maybe unrelated idea, but you talk about these thirds, and so have you? Have you found any thirds or like ways how you can do things differently when it comes to submissions?
To
not positions but submissions. Yeah.
That I think comes back to what I was saying yesterday. It's easy to focus on what your hands are doing. Like a lot of ankle lock's a prime example. People spend longer talking about what they want to do with their hands than what they want to do with their legs. Yeah, it's the legs that are going to dictate whether this thing's going to work in the first place. They spend like 1 minute, you go put your legs in this position. Now what you do with your hands is this grip or this grip or this grip or this grip. And it's like, that doesn't mean shit if you can't grip their legs in a proper way. So that's the turd in that one, is that we're focusing on the wrong side of things. Is that if I can get a really good grip on your leg and you can't go anywhere, then finishing the ankle is going to be dead easy. But if I can't even get that initial grip, then it's all pointless. Okay. So it's just changing then how I look at training submissions.
Changing the hierarchy maybe of what you get first. Changing the hierarchy of what you try to focus.
I'll focus more on like holding on to the leg than I am. But that's again, I was a prime example. Anytime I've ever met like an elite level leg locker, is the bite they create with their legs is terrifying. Like it's god awful. But how many people from lower levels spend that much time focusing on the bite compared to what they do with their hands? Like you probably spend more time figuring out what you do with your hands. Same with like arm bars and stuff. Like you focus so much about how to break grips or how to hold the wrist and everything like that. You completely ignore what you're supposed to do with your legs and how you're supposed to latch onto the shoulder. But if you suddenly start focusing on what you do with the shoulder, the arm's always going to be there. Like all I have to do is take the wrist over and just break the elbow. But if this is shit, it's always going to be super hard. Does that make sense? Like if I go for a armbar, sorry. On your orthodox. It's easy for me to just go, right, okay guys, go do an armbar, and I want to grab the wrist this way. I'm going to be taking his wrist over my hip here, and I want to make sure it's facing the ceiling, and I'm going to push my hips up. At no point, these have died. I completely forgot these fuckers existed. This thing's obvious. Like, you know which way your arm doesn't want to go. I just want to break it that way. But this part is complex, like how I grip this, because these are the part I have least control over, and these are the things that are going to dictate my control. So I need to focus a lot of my energy in making this part perfect. And so then, spending some time actually focusing on this part, my grip on the arm.
That's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not even arm-barring it. Yeah, do you feel you're going to escape from this?
No.
Exactly, and now he's not going to go anywhere. This part's going to be dead easy. That's the same logic as a good leg locker. They focus so long on how they're gripping with their legs.
Yes.
The heel part is
That's true.
Pun?
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. But
I lost 2 years of my life figuring out how to grip a leg.
Yes. Yeah.
I was crying.
Like, so how, if this is how, not to blow smoke up his ass, but elite level leg lockers are training, that they spend most of the time focusing on the bite, then what the fuck are the rest of us doing? I thought we wanted to be good. So focus on how you bite onto things. Focus on how you bite onto that shoulder for an arm bar. Focus on how you bite onto the thigh for a heel hook, or a knee bar, or an ankle lock, or whatever. The rest of it's dead easy. It's that part is really complex. Spent 2 years on it. Does that make sense? So it's just then adjusting how we train. Last question, if anyone's got one. Fuck all.
I guess they're done hearing you talk.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So am I. Thank you for your time. I enjoy the classes here always. I look forward to coming back if you guys will have me. If you want to ask me something in private, where the butterflies go in the winter, I don't know. Come and find me in a minute. But thank you guys. Thank you.
These are the survivors, yeah? Those who left already. I would say let's have a picture. We can roll for a little bit. I hope some of you will show up tonight for our final open mat. We'll do some small raffle, do some giveaways with my team rash guard. It's gonna be nice. Yes?
That's you.
Say I am a survivor. And you are.
Let's put on the song.
Bianca! Do you need plausible deniability? Do you need thrust? Never mind. Calling sick for work and shit.
Huh?